Hi everybody, how you doing? Continuing along with some cookies. We got regular in the works. I have the dough in the refrigerator. It's kind of resting and setting in there and chilling down. What else? We have. I want to make a chocolate chip cookie. All right, and I was like thinking about to myself, we always make the same kind of chocolate chip cookie, right? So one of my favorite pastry chefs out there, her name is Christina Tosi. She is a very well-renowned pastry chef. She worked for Wiley Dufresne, who's a chef that I spoke to you about. She was the pastry chef at this restaurant called WD50 in New York City, Wiley Dufresne 50. Just like WD40, only 50. It's his initials. It was one of the most outstanding restaurants there was in New York City as far as molecular gastronomy goes. And Christina was the pastry chef there. She had left because she wanted to really do simpler stuff. She didn't want to be all molecular and crazy. She doesn't believe in it. It's not her philosophy. So she went on and became a partner with David Chang, who owns Momofuku Restaurant Group in New York City. They do noodle bars, and he's got everything from Michelin star to just a slurp shop noodle bar. That's what we call ramen joints. But now she opened up a restaurant called, she opened up a bakery called Milk Bar. And Milk Bar is located next door to all Momofukus. Okay, there's one at Citi Field now. There's a Milk Bar there. There's it's David Chang's chicken place. He's got a fried chicken sandwich place. I forget what it's called now. It'll come to me. But all her baked goods are sold at his restaurants. And she has the bakeries right next door. So all Milk Bars. She has a pie called crack pie because the thing is literally like crack. It's good. It's addicting. But I wanted to make a chocolate chip cookie that was a little different than, a chocolate chip cookie that we would normally make. This is my first time making her chocolate chip cookie, so bear with me. But I found it interesting because when we talk about cookies, we're always talking about the creaming method, right? We're always talking about creaming sugars and butters together and then making a cookie. Well, this recipe is not a creaming method. We actually mix this cookie by hand. And she claims that it's the easiest and fastest cookie to make. So we're going to give it a try. And it's really good. So let's see. So what I have here is I have a half a cup of granulated sugar and 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. And it says to just take a wooden spoon and to mix these together, to mix these sugars together. Okay. I'm going to go back to my fork method because I got a little lumps in my brown sugar. You know what? Let's break those lumps up real good with our hand. They just crumble apart. And when the granulated sugar hits the brown sugar, which is just molasses and granulated sugar mixed together, okay, it dries it out. So anything that's clumping because of moisture, it kind of just softens it up and unclumps, okay? Because molasses is wet, right? And then when it gets dry, it gets really hard. That's why your brown sugar turns to a brick. Easy way, pro tip, if your brown sugar turns into a big brick, don't throw it out. When you go to use it, just throw it in the microwave for 15, 30 seconds. And it softens right back up. You can measure it then. Okay, but every single time it'll harden back up. So you just got to do it over and over again. All right. So there we go. Oh, it's definitely mixed up a lot better now. Okay. Now it says to take our butter and melt it just till it's warm to touch. Okay. A lot of people assume that melted butter needs to be completely melted down. And that's actually false. That's not true. Okay? When you melt butter, it should always have little beads of fat floating in it when you're just melting it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my butter. Okay? I'm going to cut little knobs of butter. I'll put those in there. So this calls for a ½ pound of butter. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just throw this on a low flame. And remember, a ½ pound of butter is 2 sticks, right? Each stick of butter is 2 ounces. I'm actually going to cut this smaller. Okay? And the reason I'm going to do this, I'll show you, is you notice I only put half of the butter into the pan. Okay? The other half I have sitting here on my cutting board, well, on my counter. All right? So I'm kind of going to do what's called tempering. I'm kind of going to temper this. Okay? Now, it also says to take the vanilla extract and the egg. All right, and I need how much vanilla? 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. It's quite a bit. So we want to make sure that we're moving that butter around in that pan so it melts nice and evenly. We don't want the water to separate from the fat and the casein. So right here, I got the butter, it's almost completely dissolved. All right, there's still a little piece floating around. From there, I'm just going to take my cold butter and I'm going to start to cool this down. One of the things I love about granite tabletops is you don't need to have anything underneath it. Okay, so I'm just going to stir in my butter here. So I'm cooling this down. I like my countertop because the countertop surface is cold, right? It stays nice and cold. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to keep turning around and I'm just going to keep working the rest of this butter into the melted butter. I want to be able to touch the butter. That's how I know it's at the right temperature. I don't want it to be hot. Okay, that's important. But when you see a recipe that, you know, a baked good recipe that calls for melted butter, this is a good technique to do because you're not going to over melt it. The fat, you're still going to have the fats intact. Okay. You see it's getting nice and creamy, right? It's milky, almost. We don't want that butter so hot to where it melts the sugar. That's not good. All right. It's a little bit of a process, but again, with cooking, everything is technique, guys, you know? Everything is technique, and these are not the types of things that you just learn reading a cookbook. This is the type of stuff that you get from working with some really talented people in all the restaurants you worked with them, or your chef instructors that you're fortunate enough to learn from while we're here, okay? When you go to the bakery and go, how come that chocolate chip cookie is so much better than mine? Well, it's these little master techniques that they're doing. Okay, so now from here, it says to mix this into the sugar. Okay, fine. Let's do it. This cookie's supposed to be like a nice, soft, chewy cookie. All right, and there's a debate whether what you like better, a soft, chewy cookie or a crunchy cookie, right? I like my cookies to be crunchy on the outside, hard on the outside, but ooey gooey on the inside. And one of the ingredients in this recipe is going to help achieve that ooey gooey texture. And it's a secret weapon that every pastry chef should have in their arsenal and back pocket. So this calls for 2 tablespoons of vanilla, and I'm a little bit short there. So without spilling, very carefully. Whoop. Okay, 2 tablespoons. All right, that's a lot of vanilla, guys. Wow. I don't mind, I love vanilla. All right, so now it says to basically mix this until it's sheen. A couple minutes until it's shiny, and it said to do it in the same measuring container that you did your sugar in. With my measuring, I had the sugar in it measured out in this bowl, and then I transferred it to the large bowl because I needed some sugar in there because I measured out the flour before I read that step, which is rookie move. So I'm guessing this is supposed to get kind of thick, and it's supposed to take on a sheen. One way to stop your bowl from moving, take your side towel, twist it up like that. Let the side towel hold the bowl. This would have been good in the KitchenAid. And if I had a larger bowl, I'd get more of a rotation. All right, kind of have a sheen there now. All right, so I got my sugar and my butter. All right, I got my flour. I need to add a couple things to my flour. All right. In cookies, we need leavening agents, right? Okay. So in this case, we're going to use baking powder and baking soda. Most chocolate chip cookies use baking powder and baking soda. Okay. So here we're going to take. I already measured out my flour, which was 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose. Now, again, you could certainly use cake flour a lot for cookies, but in this case, they want us to use AP. So AP is the best, usually typically around everybody's home. So that's pretty good. We're going to take 1¼ teaspoons of salt. So these are salted cookies. So I got some nice flake sea salt that we'll put on top. Okay. So they're going to be a little bit salty. So we got 1¼ teaspoon. It's a lot of salt. 1. Okay. 1/4 teaspoons of kosher salt. Okay. We need 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Half a teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Quarter teaspoon of baking soda. Scrape that salt off of there. All right, and I always use the side of the box to get it nice and flat. Boom. So excited. All right. And we got the secret ingredient, guys. Okay. This adds so much chew to your cookies. This is non-fat instant milk powder. Christina Tassi adds this to a lot of her desserts to give it this like dense, chewy texture. Okay. It's a really cool product to have. 2 products to have in your kitchen and arsenal as a pastry chef. You should always have this on hand, and also citric acid. Okay, citric acid, especially when you're doing things that are seasonal, like berries, like berry pie, berry tarts, add a little citric acid. It just really brightens up the flavor of everything. So that's a little bit of a pro tip there. So we're going to add 2 teaspoons of this powder. Ooh. Of course. Of course. This is where I start to get in trouble with the wife. Okay? Where I start making a mess. So she's like, what are you doing? You're not allowed to cook anymore. All right? Hopefully that doesn't mess up the recipe. But we got 2 teaspoons of this. I hope the baking powder and baking soda is all still in there. All right? So, I know it's weird that I always have this stuff in my kitchen, but I have I try to keep everything that I would ever need or want in my kitchen to make anything that I would ever want to make on hand at all times. Okay, so I'm just gonna simply kind of sift this with the whisk. All right, just until it's combined. All right. So let's see what's next, guys. Here we go. So first step's done. I've taken my melted sugar and I mixed it with my sugars. One more. Mix the egg and vanilla in the measuring cup you use for the sugar. Add to the mixture. Stir until the mixture gets glossy sheen. About 1 more minute. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and mix this again. Okay. Just get all that butter and everything mixed into this. It kind of looks like a unfinished caramel. I think that's what she's going here with these salted chocolate chip cookies. She's really looking for like this caramelly kind of goodness with the salted caramel. It's got so much salt in it. So now we're going to mix this in here. Another minute until it gets like this glossy sheen. Oh yeah, it's all starting to really come together. Wow. This is unlike any chocolate chip cookie I've ever made or seen. Okay? But everything she does is so good that I have no doubt it's going to be delicious. Again, you mix all this together like this, so this way you do not overmix the flour and produce too much gluten. All right. All right, so now we're going to mix in the flour. So if you can see, it's got this like glossy sheen and everything kind of came together. All right, really weird looking, kind of cool. So now, again, I'm just going to mix this until combined, right? Because we don't want a lot of gluten and structure, right? So we're just looking for this to really start to come together and become good. At this point right here, I'm going to add my chocolate chips. All right. I just got some Toll House semi-sweet chunks. I like a nice big chunk of chocolate chip in my cookies. How much do I need of chocolate chips? 12 ounces. Good thing I got my scale right here, guys. I always have my scale out. Okay, I'm going to put my container on there. That just had flour in it. And then I'm going to make sure I'm not on milliliters. I want to make sure I get to, let's do this. Ounces. Okay. Tear your scale, make sure you're at 0. 12. That's 4, 5, 6, 8. Now, it might be the whole bag. It is. It's the whole bag. I'm actually a half ounce short. They shortchanged me, guys. Boom. And that right in there. Okay. I'm going to mix that like that, so this way by the time the flour incorporates completely, I'm not going to have produced too much gluten. Wow. This cookie dough has really come together, and it's pretty impressive that how it came together, to be honest with you. Look at that. Really good. Now she basically says, scoop and go. Let's go to my trusty drawer of goodies. I got a scoop right here. She likes golf ball size. She says a number 24 scoop. What size is this? There's usually a size right there. This is a number 10. I might go a little bit bigger. I like my cookies a little big. I don't know. Let's see what we get. All right. So, just clean up my floor a little bit. So I knocked a little flour over. All right. I always tell you not to do this in class because it's no good for you with the rug. But I got to share this recipe with you. I seriously got to share this recipe with you. And it says to bake these at 375 degrees. So I'm actually going to bake them after my rugelach. It's going to be easier for me to kick up the temperature of my oven than to bring it down. Okay? Especially I don't want to make my house too hot by opening the door and letting it all come out. All right. So there's Christina Tosi's Milk Bar chocolate chip cookies. We're going to add some flake sea salt to the top. It's going to be sick. We'll be back with that. Thank you.